Hello everyone, I'm here to present a feature-complete version of Interstellar System Heat. This is a mod that works with the System Heat mod, which manages the thermal realities from fission and fusion reactors in far future engines, requiring you to have radiators. So this adapts a whole bunch of other parts to work with that, and these are parts that work the way KSP Interstellar works, which is having a separate generator, reactor, and thermal nozzle or magnetic nozzle, and you have to put them together in order to generate thrust or generate electricity. And I've also included a radiation feature. So the first and most important new feature is the ability to turn that off. So in difficulty, we have a interstellar system heat option here, and it says enable crew radiation. You can turn it off, and then you can also scale the dose rate, 1.0 being what I feel like is correct. So if you thought that you should have more radiation for some reason, you would increase that. And I've tested that out already. So that is one thing. And I've sort of shown it before, but the way it works is now a little bit more sophisticated. We can see a neutron dose rate and a gamma dose rate. Now with this setup, it is manageable. You can see 22 per year or 31 per year. That's fine. They can be safe for a very long period of time like that, decades of even. That, in theory, would be within NASA's limits. So about 50 millisieverts per year. That's actually 53, but it'd be fine. Don't take this radiation thing too seriously, in other words. But we've got a 12 megawatt reactor here. And we've got a generator, and what's protecting them is A, the distance from the reactors. So if we reduce this length here, we see the radiation dose go up, but not that much, because we've got, more importantly, stuff in the way. We've got this tank of water that is dealing with the neutron dose. If we reduce that to less than half, suddenly the neutron dose jumps to 8,000 per hour. That's because right now the way this works, because it's questionable. Even if this tank was a little bit empty, you know, it would severely diminish its capabilities to reduce the neutron dose. But basically, I've told the code that it should be halfway. So once it's halfway, it'll stop protecting the kernels. And so you can see the effect of the water tank in that now they only have 7 minutes. So this is a very valuable water tank. It's 8 tons, 8.8 tons, so that's not too bad. But there's only a 12 megawatt reactor only. That's pretty hefty, but the water tank is heavier than the reactor, so you need a lot of protection for these things. But it's not the only protection. We've got the gamma rays or X-rays, the high energy radiation to deal with, and that's what this tank is for. Now you don't see anything in this tank because lead ballast doesn't show up. So lead ballast is what's protecting them against that. If I remove that, suddenly it's 1,000 per hour, and they have 50 minutes. For this kind of reactor, the neutrons are a bigger thing than the high energy stuff. So the gamma rays or X-rays. But you can modify the dose rate by increasing the length. Now it says negligible, so I wanted to make sure that it at least showed up. That's why I sized it the way I did. We don't want that much. I wanted about 30 per year. So you can see it's very sensitive to the thickness of the lead, but note that the lead is... Oh, and it actually shows up now because I think I reset it in my own settings. You won't see it, but I told it that I wanted to see it because of this purpose. But you'll note that yeah, it's a thin tank, and it's very sensitive to the thickness of this tank. You know, a few millimeters more makes a difference, but that's because it's a 9.7 ton tank. So, you know, yeah, it's a very heavy thing. It's heavier than the water tank, and the water tank's pretty darn heavy. So, if we take a look at the mass of the reactor plus generator, this whole thing is 37 tons. Of that, about 17 to 18 tons is the protection against the radiation. And if I take this off, the reactor plus generator is about 13 tons. So right there, the reactor complex, the protection plus the reactor and generator is huge. But it'd be worth it if you have, a larger capsule up front. We're generating a lot of power. If you have then ion engines or stuff like that, that'd be good. Right now, the radiation doesn't do any damage to anything but living things, so not the computers or anything like that. All that is presumed to be locally radiation hardened. Okay, so and then we have plenty of radiators to deal with the heat. One thing that I've added is fusion reactors. Well, only one. So I said that this is a feature complete thing. What I need to work on is bug fixes. I don't know if there's any bugs, otherwise I would have fixed them already. Bug fixes and also more parts. There's only one fusion reactor right now, and that is this centrifugal mirror confinement fusion reactor, and that's because Tough SF posted a nice schematic of one, and I just used that. So the actual reactor is this. That's the reactor. And that's based on the schematic. This is the generator. This is an electrostatic charged particle generator. That means that, unlike the Brayton generator, this does not use water. I mean, most generators just boil water, right? This does not boil water or boil some working liquid. This actually uses the alpha particles from the reactor to generate power. Now, in theory, this particular reactor wouldn't work so well with this kind of generator. Right now it is. I'll probably fix that, in other words, nerf it. It should be, this is a deuterium-tritium reactor. It doesn't have many charged particles. It's a very neutron-heavy reactor. So we wouldn't expect it to work very well with this kind of generator. For that, you would need to go back to one of the Brayton generators, of which Interstellar System Heat has 3 different kinds. So we've got these 3 Brayton generators to pick from. The electrostatic charged particle generator is actually pretty heavy, but it's very efficient. So the Brayton generators work at like 35% efficiency. The charged particle one can work at 85% potentially. So you can see that we only have a system flux of 2 megawatts out of 15. That's because it's generating the 12 megawatts. So it's pretty good like that. Now, this generates way more neutrons than the fission reactor. It's a 15 megawatt reactor here, and that means that we have to worry about that. Fortunately, it seems like our neutron dose rate is negligible, but that's because we've got an actual fuel tank here, and that's this hydrogen fuel tank. Hydrogen loves to absorb neutrons because all that happens is the hydrogen gets turned into deuterium or tritium if it gets 2 of them. So if we reduce this to less than that 50%, we see that it's 3.2 per day. But that's because we've also got the water here and the lead there. Well, the water is doing the main work there. If we dump the water, then we would get 439,000 per hour, and they'd last 8 seconds. So don't let that happen. Otherwise, it's fine. Okay, and then the gamma ray and X-ray dose is not too bad. But eventually we will be using this hydrogen because that's our fuel. That's what's giving us the delta V here, because we've got a nozzle on there. So but the 3.2, you just have to make sure that we only get below 50% when we're going to be throttling down this reactor. If you throttle down the reactor, that reduces the dose rate as well. So, once you get to where you're going, you don't need to keep the reactor on. You don't need to keep it on all the time, and then you can limit the radiation that way. So it'll respond to that. Then we have the thermal nozzle. No, this is not the thermal nozzle. This is a magnetic nozzle, because with this kind of reactor, you have a magnetic nozzle. Some reactors will have a thermal nozzle. Some will have a magnetic nozzle. And so you have to pay attention to that. This operates with very high efficiency but very low thrust. The way all of the stuff in KSP, I mean not KSP, but interstellar system heat works is that the ISP is set by the type of reactor and the propellant. And once the ISP is set, it takes the thermal output and then determines the thrust based on the thermal output and the ISP. So that's what determines the thrust. The thrust is very low right now. We would get a better read outside, but you can see it's very low because we've got 32 days worth of burn time. So if we shut off the generator, we get more thrust, but we would only really see that outside. So let's take it outside. We are relatively safe up there. Now, the way the mod works, the radiation protection must be in line between the pod and the reactor. However, you can sort of cheat it by making the tanks really small. I don't have it detecting the mesh of the tanks. With procedural tanks, I'm not always sure how well that would work anyway, but probably it would be fine. But I don't have that happening right now. It's just the reactor is treated as a point-like thing. The pod is treated like a point-like thing, and it draws a line between them and sees if that line intersects a tank. And then it detects what's in that tank and whether that protects them at all. And different things protect them in different ways. So that's how it works, and if you wanted to, you could probably cheat it. In principle, what you should do is the tanks should be the same diameter as the reactor. In this case, we're a little bit small, but everything is calibrated on the assumption that you set the tanks that are shielding the little pod so that they are at least the diameter of the reactor. So here we see the 9000, we throttle up. I've just got a basic flame, even though this is a magnetic nozzle and probably should look different. We see 176.5 newtons is what it says here. That should amount to, oh, it says here 0.2 kilonewtons. I don't know about that bit, why that's not showing point. Well, it looks like I'll have to figure that out, but we are, I think, we are experiencing some acceleration, so that's good. And in time warp, we don't have, oh wait, oh yes, we are accelerating, it's just really small. So you can get a lot of delta V, and we could have put a bigger hydrogen tank than what we've got here right now and gotten much more delta V. But you can see the drawback. It's low thrust unless you've got a really big reactor, and it's a pretty heavy reactor. Fusion reactor. In fact, I'm being very nice about how big the fusion reactor is here. I made a fusion reactor calculator with the help of Claude, and I'm not basing anything on that right now because the masses are way too heavy for any of those reactors to be usable at all in the game. You would not like it if I used what that calculator said. I mean, it seems like we're accelerating much faster right now than in this level of time warp, so that puzzles me. Oh, you know what, though? It'd be better if I shut off this. Oh, yeah, now it's working. So I think what was happening was that, okay, so the generator was taking some thermal output from the reactor, but we don't need any electric charge, so that wasn't actually happening. So in this mode, it wasn't happening. But once we hit time warp, it was assuming that the generator was taking that thermal output, so it didn't give us as much thrust. It gave us the thrust as if the generator was taking all of that. But if we shut off the generator, then we get, well, it says 0.1 up there, but at least it's better than what we were getting before. So anyway, there we are. But so that's how the fusion engine works. And well, that's one variant of a fusion engine. There's plenty more where that came from, let me tell you. There's a bewildering array of possibilities. and then you can mix and match and make whatever interesting sort of version you would like. So this is just one setup. You can also use fusion with the thermal nozzle, but not this kind of fusion reactor. So let me bring this back in and show you the configuration files. So there are certain configuration files that'll be in the plugin folder for Interstellar System Heat, and the first one is Interstellar System Heat reactor types, and this defines the reactors, so solid core fission. And then there's a base specific impulse, whether you can use a thermal nozzle, whether it can use a magnetic nozzle, whether it can use a thermal generator, or whether it can use a charged particle generator. And then we have a pebble bed fission, liquid core fission, a molten salt fission, a gas core fission, and then the CMC fusion, the one that we just saw. So that's the centrifugal mirror confinement. That's what it is. Centrifugal mirror confinement. Now, whatever the ISP it says gets multiplied by the type of propellant. And so what you see 20,000 here, that would get multiplied by the liquid hydrogen. And you can select your propellant. So that means that with hydrogen, it'll get a max of 18,000. So then if we go back to solid core fission, this is 1,000 multiplied by the 0.9, you get 900 seconds of ISP and so forth. So that's a very simple way of managing the reactor types and propellants as far as calculating the ISP. And once you've got the ISP and the system calculates how much power you get from each of the reactors, then you can derive the thrust from that. The more power you have, the more thrust you can get. Now, then there's the shielding resources. So there's the Interstellar System Heat shield resource.config, and there's the effectiveness of each of the resources that you can put into procedural tanks for what they can shield. So hydrogen is really good at neutrons, not really good at the high energy particles like the X-rays and gamma rays, because X-rays and gamma rays need the basically just density. It just needs more stuff in the way. And the neutrons need something that wants to absorb a neutron because it likes being some sort of isotope. So hydrogen has neutron isotopes, and so it can take a neutron. So we have the various effectiveness of things. You can end up with heavy water, but lead is really the best for the high energy effectiveness. Lead ballast the same as lead. They are separately available in community resource pack. Tungsten is also a community resource pack thing, and it's actually more effective than lead, but I don't think any of the real fuels tanks or procedural tanks can take tungsten, but otherwise it'd be good. I also have the stock resources here just in case, and in that case the ore is doubling as iron, and iron would be pretty good. It's just really heavy. The liquid fuel and oxidizer are not so good at anything really, because they're more like, I mean, maybe I should make the liquid fuel more like methane, would be fair. So yeah, maybe I'll consider changing that. But there you have it. So that's the shielding resources, and the menu option that toggles the radiation option, the little scaler, that's actually based on this dose scaler here. So when you go into the difficulty menu and use that slider, it's changing this number in Interstellar System Heat radiation exposure.config. So those are the basic configurations. Of course, there's also the part configurations. Those are separate, but I'm not going to go over those. These are the configurations for the mod itself, the Interstellar System Heat mod, and they're in with the plugin, in the plugin folder in the EDB mods folder. So, okay, that's basically all I wanted to explain, and the various features. The big thing is, of course, the radiation, but also this time implementing the magnetic nozzle. And my magnetic nozzle actually has little magnets on, little magnet rings. And then you can see other confinement magnets going on here. So the link with the mod will be in the video description. It is actually now version 0.1. So it is the first version that actually has the features that I wanted it to have. And now I'm going to add parts and fix things. So with that, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do press like. If you have any comments or suggestions, please leave them in the comment section below. And I'll see you next time.